Thank you, Madam Majority Leader, and thank you for the presentation. I think the focus of my questions will probably be more directed to our Director of Community Benefits, and if she could join us. I want to step back, just kind of get a thousand-foot view when we're talking about community benefits. So let me start off with this. I don't know a lot about baseball, and I know we have an A's representative. So let me start the question here. How long? What's the average negotiation to transfer a player? Let's say the A's want a player tomorrow. I'm just trying to understand how much time would you invest in doing that? Does anybody have the answer to that question? How those negotiations work? Just for one player.
I'm
Yes.
familiar with how the negotiations of a player.
No, and I don't know if our A's representative knows.
Senator, I have a little
The
bit of
reason-
knowledge along those lines. I'm not the general manager of a baseball team, but so typically a player will sign a contract for a period of time. At the end of that period of time, the contract expires, they become a free agent. They can look at all teams and determine where they would like to play and negotiate with them. While the player is under contract, the player could be traded, but is under contract to play for the team.
Well, would it be fair for me to say that it probably takes months for that negotiation? Weeks, days? I'm just trying to understand it. Here's where I'm at. When did we start talking about potentially hosting this team here in Las Vegas? When was the first time that thought ignited? Do we know? When did that conversation start?
Senator Steve Hill. I would say the conversation started in earnest in early February.
Early February of this year. So in early February of this year is when we first have that idea. And then 10 days ago is when we have an opportunity to see some language and have some type of conversation. And it is my suggestion that I believe, in having had an opportunity just to do some basic research, that at times we've invested a significant amount of time, much longer than several months, in just the conversations about transferring a player. And we're talking about transferring a whole team and utilizing Nevadans' money to do that. And we've been here for about 10 days in trying to see that language. So it's concerning to me that at times we could say that a conversation for one player had more time invested, more vetting than this possibility. So that is a concern. But I want to go to Section 24 of the Community Benefits Program as I started off the conversation. And Ms. King, I know we mentioned a little bit about what we're hoping to do and spoke broadly about that. What I'm curious about is what did those community benefit programs look like in other states? So let's start off with Oakland. Do we have firm numbers? How much money was invested into the community? How many schools did we work with? How many workforce development programs existed? How much did we invest into technology? How did we work with the community, infrastructure, boys and girls? I'm just trying to understand, here's where we're starting off at. Here's everything we did in Oakland. And so that we can get a comparison to from what we've done before, because that's the track record, to the new partnership we're forming with Nevada.
Senator Yolanda King, for the record, I'm going to ask Ms. Edgar to come up and exactly what they're doing in the community.
Please, thank you.
Catherine Edgar with the A's. Yes, so at a high level, some of the work that we have done, so we annually work with 1,600 nonprofit organizations throughout Northern California, and that includes financial donations, so that's everything from grants or gifts, cash gifts to them. We do complimentary tickets, we do in-kind donations, so we average about 1,600 organizations we work with on an annual basis. Our grants right now are about $1.1 to $1.3 million. And all of the money, we have a nonprofit. Our community fund is our our charitable arm, and all of the money that comes in goes out. So all of the expenses to our charitable fund are covered by the A's. So we try to break even. All of the money that comes in, we go out through our programs as well as our gifts. We have approximately 56 Little Leagues that we are working with throughout Northern California right now. That's 21,000 youth participate in our youth baseball and softball programs. That's everything from uniforms to coaching clinics to player clinics, free tickets, coming out to the games, scholarship programs, and things like that. As I mentioned earlier, 800 classrooms participate in our literacy and math programs. This year alone, we did over $1 million pages were read through our literacy programs. We also have a number of our players that participate, so they support our initiatives and volunteer, as well as our player-run initiatives in the community. We have given about $1 million annually to food insecurity, to the food bank as well. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. I apologize, because it's not $1 million annually. It's $1.1 million worth of food to local food banks. We've volunteered over the last probably decade about 20,000 hours in the community, and overall about 250,000 youth have participated in our programs.
Thank you for that. And Madam Chair, I apologize that I'm taking up so much time. And I would appreciate, and I think this body would appreciate, and I think Nevadans in general would appreciate, if that's your starting point, if that's what you're doing already, I think that's something we can put into the NRS. Guaranteed 1.1 million in food banks. Guaranteed 1.1 million in grants. Guaranteed 20,000 human hours in this. Guaranteed 15, because that's what you're doing already. And it lays a foundation for a relationship that's going to start where you are now, and it's not forcing your hand to do so much more, but it shows that good faith relationship. And it doesn't tie your hand to the evolving needs of the community, because unfortunately food insecurity is something we're gonna have, and we're not saying which food bank. Community service is something we're always gonna have to do, and it doesn't say specifically which community organization we have to do it with. I mean, we're putting into the NRS very specific things that we're obligated to do. And we also just had a presentation with all these projections and these very specific numbers of how many jobs we think we're going to create. I think on the other side of it, we can say that publicly, because I think when we talk about the community benefits program, we speak about it and we tippy-toe and we're so cautious. And you have in this room individuals who went through a negotiation on Allegiant Stadium. We did it through a special session. But I'll tell you, there was one year of humans having conversations individually with legislators at coffee shops. It was 1 year of individuals having conversations individually or in groups with different folk, different perspectives. And even with that 1 year, I'll tell you, the community benefits program that was promised was not delivered. So we are incredibly hesitant, not because of who the partners you are or because of what you're presenting. It has nothing to do with you. It's just that you have folk that were in this room and were promised a lot of things. And the community benefits program sounded great, but very little of it was actually delivered. So when you hear from us pushing back and saying we would love to see some of this in the NRS, it's not because we're suggesting that we don't trust the good faith efforts and we don't trust that we're going to have a great partnership. And that unfortunately some of us are just remembering what just happened a few years ago. And so for us, it's so important that if we have a partner coming into the community and that we invest all of this, all these resources, and that we do it in such an amazing way that I think we could have an incredible relationship, that we ask just for a little bit more buy-in, extending our hand with a firm foundation of commitments in this actual bill that extend beyond just saying community benefit program. And I think we can do it. You're already doing amazing work, and I am not minimizing what you're doing in Oakland, but I think if we can start there and put that in the NRS, it would start giving us, some of us, some comfort. And Madam Chair, my only last question, I would appreciate, not question, Madam Chair, more of a request. I would appreciate an opportunity for an actual continued conversation. And if we're not going to touch the NRS and we're not going to touch any of this, that an actual conversation, whether it be a press conference or a written commitment, where you lay out specific obligations that you've already said you're going to abide by for UNLV, for CSN, for certain nonprofits, Again, because that also allows us to hold you accountable in a relationship way, right? Because we want to hold each other accountable. You're asking a lot from the state. We will be held accountable too, but that we do it through something in writing formally, where the public will remind you years down the road, remember we shook hands on this. And I think that's how this partnership just becomes a little bit more solidified, because we didn't have an opportunity to do it. You know, some of us are having conversations for the first time about this today. So I just, you know, I would appreciate that, and I thank you for being here.